Do you want to know how to take a test strategically? Well, in this video tutorial, I'm going to take you through how I take the test after I've set up my test.
If you haven't already checked out part 1 of this video, check it out because that's when I set up my test.
So again, if you go to fsassessment.org, you'll find some practice tests. In the previous video, I showed you how to get there. So now I'm going to jump to my already set up test. In the last video, I've already gone through and done a preview and a prediction of each passage, passage 1 and 2. I've collected preview words and made a prediction. I collected preview words from passage 2 and made a prediction. While reading the title in 3 sentences, I found that my prediction for passage 1 was kind of wrong, but that's good. I'm not going to change it. I'm already making meaning from my reading. And before I started reading the text for real, I went through and found keywords in the questions. I never looked at the answer options, just the questions. I made sure I could determine what the questions are asking me briefly before I read. So while I read, I can go in and highlight examples of these words throughout the text, finding the answers before I even finish reading. So this is a pretty efficient process. I do suggest that your students never skip the little summary statements above the passages. They really help you get an idea about the context of the passage. So let's go ahead and start reading our passages and highlighting examples of our answers. So here we go. So the following story is from an issue of the Lowell Offering, a monthly magazine of letters, stories, and poetry written by women working in the textile mills in Lowell, Massachusetts in the mid-1800s. Okay. Now, whenever I see one of my keywords here or something that makes me think about my keywords, I'm going to highlight it. I will not stay in Lowell any longer. I am determined to give my notice this very day, said Ellen Collins, as the earliest bell was tolling to remind us of the hour for labor. Well, I know question 4 had something about bell, so I am going to highlight that. I don't know what it means. I don't know, but I'm collecting evidence that goes along with my questions. Why? What is the matter, Ellen? It seems to me you have dreamed out a new idea. Where do you think you're going, and what for? I am going home, where I shall not be obliged to rise so early in the morning, nor be dragged about by the ringing of the bell, nor confined in a closed, noisy room from morning to night. I will not stay here. I am determined to go home in a fortnight. Well, there we got our ringing bell again. So I'm going to get that in yellow. Anything else that connects here? I guess not. Alright, such was our brief morning's conversation. In the evening, as I sat alone, reading, my companions have gone out to public lectures or social meetings. Ellen entered. I saw that she still wore the same gloomy expression of countenance which had been manifested in the morning, and I was disposed to remove from her mind the evil influence by a plain, common-sense conversation. You know, I'm thinking that this Ellen girl doesn't have a lot of friends, and I'm not sure what destitute means, but friends might be something that I want to consider here. So she's alone, right? She's reading, she sat alone, she doesn't have friends. Now, I could make this a different color, but I don't have enough colors to match on my question, so I'm just going to keep going with yellow. Something to pay attention to. And so, Ellen, said I, you think it unpleasant to rise so early in the morning and be confined in the noisy mill so many hours in a day? And I think so too. All this, and much more, is very annoying, no doubt. But we must not forget that there are advantages as well as disadvantages in this employment, as in every other. If we expect to find all sunshine and flowers in any station in life, we shall most surely be disappointed. We are very busily engaged during the day, but then we have the evening to ourselves, with no one to dictate to or control us. I have frequently heard you say that you would not be confined to household duties, and that you dislike the millinery business altogether, because you could not have your evenings for leisure. You know that in Lowell we have schools, lectures, and meetings of every description for moral and intellectual improvement. Okay. So I'm connecting that my projection for passage 2 was about living in a boarding house, and my prediction for passage 1 was about school. So now I'm thinking these girls, they live in a boarding house and there's schools, but they're also working in a mill. So I'm just checking in with my thinking as I'm going. That's what your students need to do. They need to check in. All that is very true, replied Ellen. But if we were to attend every public institution and every evening school which offers itself for our improvement, we might spend every farthing of our earnings and even more. Then, if sickness should overtake us, what are the probable consequences? Here we are, far from kindred and home, and if we have an empty purse, we shall be destitute of friends also. Ooh, there's my phrase, destitute of friends. So if we're sick and we don't have money, we won't have friends? I wonder what this question is asking. Alright, you are fully aware, Ellen, that a country life does not exclude people from labor. That people have often to go a distance to meetings of any kind. That books cannot be so easily obtained as they can here. That you cannot always have just such society as you wish. That you... She interrupted me by saying, we have no bell with its everlasting ding-dong. There's my bell again, so I'm going to get that. Alright, and my questions 1 and 6 focus on point of view. It seems to be there's 2 points of view going on. Ellen and the other speaker, they disagree about life in Lowell. That one girl thinks it's great there because they have a lot of access to books and stuff, and the other girl hates having to work in the factory. It's just what I'm thinking right now. Okay, paragraph 10. What difference does it make, said I, whether you shall be awaked by a bell or the noisy bustle of a farmhouse? For, you know, farmers are generally up as early in the morning as we are, obliged to rise. There is our bell again. It's a noisy bell waking her up. Alright, but then, said Ellen, country people have none of the clattering of machinery constantly dinning in their ears. So maybe that's noise like the bell. It's something bothering her. It's always constantly in her ears. I'm going to highlight that connecting to the bell in some way. And maybe Ellen's point of view. Things are stressing her out. True, I replied, but they have what is worse, and that is a dull, lifeless silence all around them. The hens may cackle sometimes, and the geese gabble, and the pigs squeal. Ellen's hearty laugh interrupted my description, and presently we proceeded very pleasantly to compare a country life with a factory life in Lowell. This is where it's going here, I think. There's a comparison of their points of view, right? So I'm going to highlight that. Her scowl of discontent had departed, and she was prepared to consider the subject candidly. We agreed that since we must work for a living, the mill, all things considered, is the most pleasant and best calculated to promote our welfare, that we will work diligently during the hours of labor, improve our leisure to the best advantage in the cultivation of the mind, hoping thereby not only to increase our own pleasure, but also to add to the happiness of those around us. So in the end, they agreed that this is the best place to be. So I'm not going to go and do passage 2. I think you got a clear example of how to use these strategies to go through and pre-find your answers. But let's go and answer us a few questions. So let's go to question 1. Select 2 sentences for passage 1 that show that Ellen is willing to consider another person's point of view. Well, that happened down here, right? When they agreed. So let's go ahead and find an answer from paragraph 13 probably. So I don't even have to look at paragraph 5, 6, or 10. I know it's going to be one of these 2. Ellen's hearty laugh interrupted my description, and presently we proceeded very pleasantly to compare a country life with a factory life in Lowell. That sounds right. But I'm going to look at this one too. Her scowl of discontent had departed. She was prepared to consider the subject candidly. Oh, so this question is about whether she's willing to consider another person's point of view. And she's prepared to consider. Look, the words from the question are in the answer. So even though this could be right, This is the best answer because this answer is about her preparing to consider the narrator's idea or point of view. And the question's asking, how do you know that she's willing to consider? And the answers are there, but I wouldn't have been set up to look at these two if I hadn't done my coding and my keywords and my highlighting in here. So let's try question 2. I'm glad that worked. Question 2. Which sentence states a theme of passage 1? So theme is the overall truth about life that it is trying to give us. If I look back at my prediction and I look at my highlighted words, we have that bell ringing, so this girl's really stressed out. She's not happy at the mill, but then eventually she realizes, though she's not happy, compared to country life, she has a lot of access to books and they have a lot of ability to have leisure time to cultivate their minds. So let's see what we got here. Hard work pays off in the end. Well, maybe. Country life is better than city life. Well, we know that they agreed that the mill life is actually better, so it can't be B. Employers must treat workers with respect. It doesn't really talk about the employers too much. We know that one girl, Ellen's, kind of unhappy with the way she's treated, but it's not really the point. D. It is important to consider both sides of an argument. I think this is the answer, because question 1 was about this girl thinking or preparing to consider another person's point of view. The questions are working together. So I'm going to do D. Even though I think A could have been an answer, that's pretty good, because if they do their hard work, it's going to pay off in the end here, as they say at the end of paragraph 13. But I think this is the best answer because it works together with question 1. I'm being strategic. This says I'm going to go to paragraph 6. Let's go to paragraph 6, see if I highlighted anything. I didn't, but let's go ahead and read it and see if we can find evidence to support this idea. It is important to consider both sides of an argument. And so, Ellen, said I, you think it is unpleasant to rise so early in the morning and be confined to the noisy mill so many hours in the day? And I think so too. All this and much more is very annoying, no doubt. But we must not forget that there are advantages as well as disadvantages in this employment, as in every other. This is the both sides of the argument, right? I really think it is. So I'm going to click that as my answer. Question 3. It's still about passage 1, so I'll do it. How do the repeated references to the ringing bell affect the dialogue between the narrator and Ellen throughout passage 1? Here's my bell. Now, I highlighted so many examples of bells that I can't just go to one paragraph to find my answer. So let's see what they say. Let's see if they match with anything that I've seen before, or do they build off of question 1 and 2 about looking at different perspectives. A. They show what the narrator has done to improve her life. So the bell is showing how it's made her life better? Not sure. She seems stressed out by the bell. B. They add to the tension of the choice Ellen is trying to make. Well, if they're stressing her out, that is tension, so it could be B. They provide a contrast for the work the women do in the mill. Contrast means different, but the bell reminds her of the mill, so that would be same. So I think that would be gone. D. They help readers understand why Ellen wants to stay in the city. Again, I don't think they do. Our narrator does that. The reason she wants to stay in the city is because she has access to books and different leisure activities, and they're going to increase her happiness and those around them because they have access to those things. And there's like nothing on a farm but pigs and geese and chickens. So I don't think it's D. It's definitely not C. It's not improving her life, the bell. It's adding tension to her choice. Because notice, after they made an agreement, they both come to an agreement, there's no more bell being mentioned. But throughout, even up to paragraph 11, there's this noise in her ears, whether from the machinery or the bells. So I think we're going to go with B. It's adding tension. Number 5 is 2 parts. How is the narrator's point of view different from Ellen's? Oh, this is where their difference was. That was paragraph 6? Yeah, the advantages, disadvantages. But then she really gets down here, talking about how they're different, about the country life. So, the narrator thinks that the work the women do in the mill is easy. No, she doesn't. Where does she say? I think it's paragraph 6. You think it unpleasant to rise early? I think so too. It is annoying, so it's not easy to her. The narrator recognizes the benefits of living and working in Lowell. Yeah, she does. I don't think I need to look at another answer, but I will just to make sure. But she says that it's beneficial, that you have things here, that books cannot be so easily obtained as they can here. So, okay. The narrator enjoys the sounds of mechanical equipment heard in the city. It doesn't really talk about that. It talks about how Ellen doesn't like that. But then country people have none of the clattering of machinery constantly dinning in their ears. So that's really about Ellen, not narrator. The narrator acknowledges that there is not enough time for leisure in Lowell. No, the narrator says that we will work diligently during the hours of labor, improve our leisure to the best advantage in the cultivation of the mind. So when their leisure time, they should go out and enjoy themselves. I think she says that somewhere else too. We are very busily engaged during the day, but then we have the evening to ourselves. Okay. So the narrator doesn't think that there's not enough time. That's what Ellen thinks. So our answer is B. B. Part B, where's our evidence? Well, I should have known. I do not need to look in paragraph 7 or 11 because I found most of my answers in paragraph 6 or evidence to support my selection of B. So I'm going to look at A and B only. And so, Ellen, said I, you think it unpleasant to rise so early in the morning and be confined in the noisy mill so many hours in the day. But we must not forget that there are advantages as well as disadvantages in this employment as in every other. She knows there's benefits, and that's an advantage. I think that's our answer. Okay, so I'm just going to stop now. Your student would answer all of them after reading all the passages, but for this tutorial, I think this was a good stopping point. Hopefully you've seen the benefits of taking a test strategically, because the test is designed to help you. The questions build on each other, but you just have to think carefully, strategically, and really read the text and find your evidence to support all your decisions. This conversation I've had out loud is what happens inside the brain of a good test taker and a good reader, because ultimately these tests are only about equipping your child with the ability to think and read and reason critically and strategically in life.